I like to surround myself with all different types of people. I think when you have friendships, you should kind of have it be like a puzzle of some sort. You have one friend that you can go to for serious conversations. You have another friend that you can go out to breweries with. At least in my case, that's what I like to do. You have a friend that you can, ask for career advice. You have friends that you work out with, all sorts of things. And so you, of course, need a friend that makes you laugh. And so that is the guest on today's podcast, Jake Lenok. Second appearance, mind you, on the show. There was once a time, Jake, where you would privately criticize me for not having major appearance yet. You were back on the show in March, albeit with another person, our friend Connor. Shout out Connor. And now you are making your second appearance on the show. So you are now in rarefied air. So I just want you to appreciate the gravity of this moment. And thank you for joining me. Thank you for being a good friend. Not only are you a person that I just love talking to and love BSing around with, good mixture of serious and not serious at all conversation, which we'll get into a little bit later. You're also, we pal around, like we're the same age and whatnot. You're also a couple years older than me. And so I kind of look up to you as a mentor in kind of ways. You've been through a lot of shit.
What a horrible mentor to have.
You've seen a lot of shit and you've been through a lot. And so I kind of lean on you for some guidance in some situations where I'm just a little naive or young and inexperienced. So thank you for everything. Thank you for joining me. What is good?
It's kind of like the parents say, like, don't be like me, be better than me. I know the way, I'll guide you there. But I like how you started this off saying that you have a lot of interesting people. A lot of people say like they surround themselves with good people. You're like, let's surround ourselves with interesting people, which is something I do because I don't hang out with exclusively good people. But I'm glad to know that in the Troy Farkas hierarchy, that I'm one of the interesting people, not exactly a good person. I think it's an accurate way to put myself too. So I'm not even insulted, but I am glad to be here. Second appearance. I don't know how many people did it. I know it's been a barrier that's been crossed before. And I think I absolutely deserve it. But that being said, I'm very excited to do this with you. I love talking to you. We have great conversations all the time. Just last week, we were on the phone and we had a nice little hour-long conversation. So I assume this will be pretty unstructured and we just kind of talk our shit like we usually do.
Yes, I appreciate being you. You now have a very long commute to work from New Jersey to good old Bristol, Connecticut. So you've got some time, and I appreciate being on the receiving end of some of those calls. I have a tendency, and especially back when I was growing up, I surrounded myself with some really shitty people. And a lot of my friends that I have now that have been with me through it all can attest to that because they would get on me all the time. Like, why are you surrounding yourself with this girl? Like, she's a piece of trash. Like, why are you hanging out with that guy? She just gets you in all this trouble. So kind of you are like the adult version of that person that I used to always have around me. You are the adult version who's a little more put together. You can be a bad influence sometimes, but you kind of like bring me back to my youth. So thank you for that.
Well, I mean, like, I'm a bad influence only when it's necessary. I'm not going to tell you to derail your entire health thing, but I know that, Troy Farkas is a little bit crazy. I know that he's a little bit too structured. I am not. That's not my thing. I'm not a structured human being. If I want to do something, I pretty much do it. And if Troy is the type of guy that needs to do something because of health, I have a lot of practice in this. I've told you many times, you and my brother are wildly different people, but you guys both share a lot of striking similarities in terms of doing your own thing and not being able to deter from your ultimate plans. And it kind of makes you crazy if you don't. So I have had a lifetime of trying to convince people to do stuff that they don't necessarily want to. And it has just continued. I've pretty much been doing this since I was 2 years old. So I feel like while being a bad influence, I'm also a good influence. I'm not like telling you to go out and like smoke crack or something like that. That's not my thing. It's never been my thing. I'm just kind of like hey, let's go out and party and talk to people that you want to talk to and kind of let your hair down a little bit. Let's see those curly locks hang down to the shoulders. You know what I'm saying? So I'm glad that I was that guy for you. And we had a lot of fun in Bristol because of it, because I think that type of situation always brought out the best in you, my friend.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You definitely helped get me out of a shell, which I was very much in when I first met you. We didn't quite see eye to eye when we first met. You reminded me of a lot of like college guys. You're not a frat guy, but everyone thinks that you're a frat guy because you're loud, obnoxious, like sports, like gambling. Like you're just a typical frat guy, even though you actually weren't in a fraternity. And so you very much reminded me of all the guys that I hated in college and that I never wanted to become. And so when we were forced to work together, and I was just around you all the time. I was like, get me away from this kid. I don't want to be near this kid at all. But because I was forced to be near you and forced to spend a lot of time with you, I just kind of over time started, like taking a liking to you and found your humor not annoying, but funny. And we spent a lot of time overnights, especially feeling each other out, little disagreements here and there about meaningless stuff, but eventually came around you. And so it is a testament to, I think, don't always judge a book by its cover. A lot of people make good impressions, and then over time you realize that they kind of suck. You make a bad first impression and then give you more time, and then you actually you become more endearing as you go on. It's a rare thing. So keep an open mind about people.
It's a classic case of under promise and over exceed expectations, or no, over promise, under promise, over deliver. That's the case that I do. Like, I know what I am. I'm never going to change that, but there are layers. I'm like an onion. You just peel another layer. Shout out Shrek, great movie. But you peel another layer, there's a little depth that you don't know. And even though when we first met, I knew you as the guy that was just on the computer, just hammering away at work, because that's kind of what you do. I work hard too, but I also can multitask. I work and I talk shit. That's kind of what I do. So when I first met you, I'm like, I don't know what this Troy Farkas's deal is. I like him. I never disliked you. When I first heard that you just really didn't like me, it kind of broke me a little bit. It hurt me. I was like, I was never mean to this kid. Why does he hate me?
No, you weren't.
But I know for a fact that I turn a lot of people off because right off the jump, I could be a lot for a lot of people. I'm loud. I will get in your face. I will try to say something to stir the pot every once in a while. And being that we used to work in a sports related environment, I kind of just try to feel people out for what they like. And I just try to destroy them just to see if they have like a little edge to them. And then I build them back on, just like, I'm just fucking with you. I like that you have a little snap to you. You're a little snapping turtle. You look quiet and calm underneath the water. And then you got jaws to you. So I really enjoyed that. But when I first heard that you didn't like me, I'm like, I'm going to win him over. That's frat boy culture. I'm just like, I'm going to get him. No. But we started doing the overnights and we realized that we had a lot of similar passions and a lot of similar lifestyles. Like, it's easy to look at somebody and be like, oh, he's a frat boy, just like partying and gambling and talking shit. But then, we connected a lot because I'm very health conscious and, I'm a friendly person. I'm outgoing. I care about people and, well, sort of. And it just turned into a nice relationship for me and for you. And it got us through some hard times with good people. So I was with it.
Yeah. One of my favorite things about you is that you, unlike so many people, I love making plans and doing things with people, but a lot of people are, very, I can't go out at that time because it'll only give me 5 hours of sleep, or I had a plan to do this tonight. Like, I was gonna go see this movie or whatever. Like, I already had plans. I can't change, whatever. Like, people make all sorts of excuses for not doing things. You will do whatever it takes. If there's something that you really want to do or someone that you want to see, you will willingly spend an unnecessary amount of money on the Uber ride that it involves. You will shortchange yourself sleep. You will compromise your work situation if you're working that day or the next day or whatever. So I really appreciate that about you. Why do you do that? Because not enough people do.
I have a very big need to be around people. That's like something I always love to do. It's part of the reason you mentioned that I have a long commute back from New Jersey. I was living by myself for 3 years in Connecticut. And I've never liked roommates either. I'm kind of like a difficult person to be around all the time for the very reason that you were explaining. I don't have an off button. And I know that this sounds a little bit hypocritical, being that we started this podcast 45 minutes late because I was sleeping. But when I sleep, it's a very rarefied occasion. I don't sleep that much. And I have like a need just to get up and go. I'm a very energetic human. So if I'm not around people, I need to be exercising. I need to be playing tennis. I need to be going swimming. I need to go for a run. And on a Friday night, it's something in me where if I'm not hanging out with people, I feel like I am doing absolutely nothing. So I try to rally the troops and I try to tell people that something needs to happen. If I see a hurdle, I'm like, don't worry about the hurdle. I got the hurdle. I can see the hurdle is stressing you out. Clear your mind, free your mind. It's on me tonight. If that's something that is going to cost me money, if that's like an expense sort of thing, like your hurdle is the only thing that's stopping you, I'm going to try and appease that hurdle so you don't have to stress about it and you can just have a good time. For me, you don't get buried with money. You get buried with what you have. You're only here once. It's for rent, So I just enjoy being around people all the time. And I like to just do stuff that keeps me activated, my brain activated, to be around people, to keep me on edge, to keep me sharp. I mean, people get old by being alone and just wallowing in their things. And I'm just like, I don't want to do that. I'm not old by any stretch of the imagination. I'm old compared to you, but I just really like being around people. I just feel like it makes me a better person.
I love that about you. I appreciate that about you. And I'm very much of the mindset similarly, where life is short. There's people that we all care about, that we want to be around. We all say that, oh, we should get together soon. Oh, we should do this and that. And then we don't. It's just kind of a formality that we all throw around. And so I'm a person that's like, hey, like if you throw an invite to me or if you mention something, I'm going to take advantage of that. When I've been traveling all around the country this year, people have said like, oh, well, when you're in this town, stop by, we'll hang out. I'm like, don't throw that out if you don't mean it. I'm going to come see you and we're going to have a good time. And so I've kind of gotten that from you because, it's very important to take any fleeting moment that we have with the people that we love and to take advantage of it, because there will be a time where, as we're getting older, it's just getting harder and harder to make things happen because of all sorts of logistical reasons, jobs, marriages, kids, all that good stuff. It's only going to get more complicated. So it's really important to take advantage of it while you can.
And also, I saw that evolution in you where you used to let that stuff hurdle you a little bit because you're like, oh, no, I actually have to be up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go for a run or to climb a mountain or to watch the sunrise or to get bathed in the waters of Lake Minnetonka or something like that. Whatever the excuse may be, you were that pure spirit where you wouldn't let yourself get corrupted a little bit. And my message is like, don't get corrupted. Don't compromise your values. Don't do something you don't want to do. But if there's a hurdle telling like that is minor in the grand scheme of things, telling you not to go out and socialize, which is something that we all need in order for our brains to operate correctly, whether it be a Monday, Saturday, Tuesday, whatever. I mean, you do it. If you want to do something, just do it. It's not hurting anybody. So that's kind of like my thing. And when I was friends with you, when we were living in Bristol, Connecticut together, I saw the evolution in you where you were just like, screw it. He's right. Like, let's just do stuff. I don't care if it's a Wednesday night. And, I do have to get up and go for a run, but you know what? I'll wake up. I'll power through it. If I get home at 1 o'clock, a little bit drunk, I'll go for the run hungover. Just what you do.
Yeah.
I mean, for me in my situation, I was famous for, my drunk runs when I was training for the marathon back in 2018. And we would go out or do something. I'm like, I can't skip a day because a marathon takes great composure and being relentlessly on task. But I was like, I'm still going to live my life while having my eye on the prize. So I would get home at 2 o'clock in the morning, a couple of drinks deep, go on the treadmill and just run 10 miles.
Long live Blackout Monday, the summer of 2019, which I did partake in once or twice and hated my life for the next couple of days. But looking back, great story, good time. So wouldn't take it back for the world. So you mentioned the marathon. It's so funny you bring that up because I wanted to talk to you about that. So I have just announced on the TF show, if you missed it, Monday's episode, that I'm going to be doing a half marathon in October in Portland, Maine. And so I've been, over the last 24 hours since I made this decision, I've consulted a bunch of people who have run marathons or half marathons, kind of about the physical training leading up to it, the best way to approach it. I want to talk to you about the actual in-race approach, because you ran the New York City Marathon in the fall of 2019. I was there, great time. Pandemic, you're going to do it in 2020. Pandemic threw that off. You are now currently in training to run it later this year, shortly after mine. And so you are now training for it. But I want to talk to you about kind of the in-race thing, because physically, I don't think it will be an issue. I think, if you threw me out there right now, I could do it. But while I train for the next month and a half, it'll just get me to where 13.1 isn't that hard for me to do physically. But mentally, I'm a little afraid of, because I've never run that far. And 3 miles in, I'm going to be like, God damn it, I have 10 miles left of this. And then 7 miles, my mind's going to be telling me like, I can't do anymore. Like, I don't want to do this. Like, get me away. I just want to go back home and get under my bed and be comfortable again, because your mind is the biggest limiter. Your body can do amazing things that we don't think it can do. It's your mind that that prevents you from doing absolutely incredible things. And so that's why I want to do this half marathon, is to just show myself what I'm made of. And so when you were running that marathon a couple years ago, what were the highs and lows like going through your mind for those 3+ hours?
I can give you almost like a play-by-play. But first of all, I want to give a huge shout out to you, because this is definitely out of your comfort zone. You are a guy, and I've worked out with you many times, and I will be keeled over on the ground trying to catch my breath at all this. You go 189% every single time you do anything. So it's going to be a real challenge for you, because it's going to have to make you pace yourself while you like to go through extremes and run. And running a 13.1 miles going at a 4-mile minute race is a 4-minute mile pace is difficult. So I think that you're going to need to change up that mentality. I have no doubt that you can do it, and I have no doubt that you'll be singularly focused on completing the goal. But it's not easy, and I wish you all the luck. But as far as my experience for the marathon, there were extreme highs and lows, like the endorphin rush that you get. So let's start it before the marathon starts. We're in my house, New Jersey. Connor and I were running the marathon, and we wake up. I bounced up. I barely slept the night before, as I tend to do. I went to sleep fairly early. I couldn't get to sleep for like 4 hours, and by that time I got like 3 hours of sleep. But that's a pretty normal day for me. So I was feeling good. I was feeling light. I'll tell you where we screwed up, though. So we get into the city and we go down to the boat that takes you to the bus. There's like a whole bunch of hoops and ladders you have to go through. Sorry, my brother's dog is here and he's like trying to hang out with me. But there's a whole bunch of hoops and ladders you have to jump through. Where we made our first mistake was when we went to the bus after the boat. The bus takes you, I want to say, it keeps you in Staten Island, but Staten Island is bigger than you expect. So you're on this bus for like 30 minutes, and we did not get a seat. We're like, let's just get on. And we're standing the entire bus ride, and we're in really good shape at this point. So it wasn't an issue of standing on the bus, but you need to conserve your energy better than that. You need to be able to be as lazy as possible before on the ride up, and then stretch it out, calm down, and then you start the race. So that was our first mistake. On the bus, we stood up, and by the time we got there, we had to walk about a half a mile to our resting point before the race started. When the race started, you hear like that giant boom. Honestly, you think, because you're standing right underneath a Staten Island bridge, I forget what bridge it's called, but you hear booms. And the first time I heard it, I was like, what's going on here? Like, I thought we were getting attacked. And then I heard it again and again. I'm like, oh, that must be the starting gun. Smart. So when you first start the race, though, you get so pumped up. You see the starting line. I'm jumping up. I'm ready to go. I was like Sosa, Chief Keef, like all this stuff. And I'm getting hyped up. The first, I want to say 6 or 7 miles was the easiest. I was gliding. I was floating on air. I was just having the greatest time. The thing about the New York City Marathon, which is what made me want to run it, I'm from New York. I'm a hybrid of New Jersey and New York. I used to go to the New York City Marathon all the time. My brother ran the New York City Marathon in 2016, and I was there for it, and it just looked like a giant party now that I'm a fully grown man. I used to go when I was younger. I got to experience it through an adult's eyes, and I was like, this looks awesome. So when you're going through all these neighborhoods have giant parties for the runners. Everybody's on the sides. It's a beautiful day outside. We got really lucky for it to be a beautiful day in November. It was a little chilly. There was a little crisp in the air, not too much wind, but it wasn't like hot and it wasn't like cold, which can kill you when you're running. Giant party, every single neighborhood. You go through Staten Island, which is like a little bit, a humble town. Then you go into like Brooklyn, you see all the hipsters, and you go into the other side of Brooklyn where you see all like the Hasidic Jews, and then you go into Queens, and then you go into Manhattan where it's all a bunch of waspy, uppity, jappy people, and like you get to see culture changes over and over again. They're all having the same party in their different type of ways. They're dressed differently. Everything is different. And it was just so cool to see how everything started building up. However, my family was waiting for me in Manhattan at the first time. I crossed over what they call the Lonely Mile, which is the 54th Street Bridge. And it's crazy. It's a crazy experience because it's about 16 miles in, and I'm starting to get a little bit tired at this point. And I was really running out of energy, but I was just like, they tell you to take off your headphones for the long, lonely mile, because you run it and it's just footsteps and people. And then the closer you get to the end of that bridge, you just hear like a wave of noise, which is the Manhattan Party coming up, and it hypes you up in such a way that you can never duplicate. It's like an experience that is unmatchable. I will never forget what that was like, going to that wave of music. My mom and sister were waiting for me at the bottom of that bridge, and as I leaned over to give them a giant hug, I felt my calf muscle tighten up and just twist, and I'm like, oh, God damn it. And that started a very, very horrific 17 through 21st miles. Think about it. When you are running that far, like, yes, it's easy to recap the story and be like, 17 miles in, I skipped over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Like, I actually did pretty well in those. I got text messages like, holy shit, dude, you're actually killing this. I thought you were fat your whole life. Congratulations. And I'm like, 17th mile was when my downturn started, because you start thinking like, oh my God, I still have 9 miles. On my best day, that is like an hour and a half more of running. Like, that is a lot of miles to go. And then I keep going up First Avenue, which is like a little giant hill, and it's longer than you can ever imagine. And then all of a sudden my groin gives out, and I'm like, oh God, this is bad. And then my other groin gives out, and then my other calf tightens up. And this is at like mile 19, still have about 7 miles to go. I'm like, this is not good. Your brain starts to go into that doubt. You start thinking, I'm not going to finish this race. There's absolutely no shot I'm finishing this race. I am in far too much pain. There's still an hour left to go. At this point, like, you start walking a little bit, and you're just like, how do people do this? Like, I'm in the best shape of my life. I have been training. I've ran 20 miles before. I never ran more than 22 miles in training, because they tell you like your first time should be the actual marathon, so you feel more accomplished. Mm-hmm. But when I do it again, I'm going to make sure that I run 26.2 miles, because those 19, 20, 21st, and 22nd miles were as close to hell as you can possibly get. My whole body shut down. I'm in like a cold sweat. It's getting a little bit colder outside. It's a little bit later in the day, but you just enter a zone that you cannot replicate. It's like a mind over matter thing. Your body is capable of doing incredible things. And even though my entire body completely shut down, completely, my brain was just like, dude, you put way too much work in this. Just do it, and you can spend the rest of the day doing whatever you want. And I finished at 4 hours and 35 minutes, which is a time I'm very satisfied with, a time that I can work towards beating. And I was very proud of myself. And then the rest of the day, I just got to get drunk, eat pizza and ice cream. And that was kind of what I planned to do. So that's kind of my style of doing things. So
are you changing anything in your approach into the lead up to this race?
The lead up to this race, I'm in the process right now of transformation. I've been cutting weight a lot. My approach is a little bit less extreme. Last year, I was not last year. Last time I ran it, I was very focused. I didn't really get that this year because I signed up very late, but now I'm entering that mindset where it's just like, okay, everything you eat can affect you in November. Everything you do can affect you in November. If you take this runoff, it can affect you in November. So now I'm starting to enter that zone. And I remember really getting that change when I did the Whole30 diet. I believe it was June of 2019. And it was something that slimmed me down. I remember I lost 25 pounds just from going 30 days of doing the Whole30. It's a great diet. It's an extreme diet, but if you could stick with it, it helps a lot. And I'm about to enter that on August 20th. So I'm going to go August 20th to September 20th and do the Whole30. And then once you see yourself slim down, you're like, okay, like, let's just go for a run. And it becomes fun after a while. You really enjoy it. And that's the best part about it. It stops being a chore and just something that you like doing. And then it leads to one of the greatest accomplishments you could do in your life. At least it was for me.
When you did the Whole30 diet, you did it for a month. You were kind of experimenting with all sorts of other diets for a set amount of time as well. You once did the vegan diet not only were you eating the vegan, you were also adopting the vegan lifestyle of just being an annoying person and telling every person that you encounter that you are a vegan, which was great.
Well, this is the thing that you and I really connected with at first. I mean, we mentioned that we didn't really, well, I liked you. You didn't like me for some reason. I'm such a lovable person that I never really understood it. But when I do something, I do it 100%. And that's something that you and I really agree on and share that mentality. But that goes with diets too. And you know, 1,000 people that, diet, need to tell you about it and need to adopt a certain mentality. So before I did the whole 30, I was experimenting with all these diets, whether it was no carb, vegan, paleo. Is that what it's? Paleo. Like I did it all, but it's not enough to just adopt the diet. You got to adopt the lifestyle. It's very important. It's a key component to everything. It's a community. So when I was a vegan and I saw somebody eating chicken, I was just like, oh, I didn't know you like eating blood, you animal killer, like, and give them all the blame. I mean, I'm the biggest meat eater in the world. I had a steak last night and it was fantastic. But, when you are in that mentality, if you're not shaming people for eating meat, are you actually doing the diet? The answer is no. So that's a key component. And I needed to shame people for eating meat in order to finish the marathon. It was a key component of my training. And I actually, every time I shamed people for eating meat, it was working towards November, as I said before. So it was all very important. It was all very key. And it ultimately worked out. So I'm proud of myself for making the world a better place. That's a great thing that I do. And props to me for that.
You do make the world a better place. If all the listeners, viewers can't tell, you have a lot of great one-liners. And so I've been keeping track of some of your one-liners in my notes page over the years because I just love referring to it whenever I need a good laugh. There's a lot of inappropriate ones in here that I'm not going to share, but there's two in here that are PG-13 that I kind of want to use as a jump off point for conversation. So do you want one about death or money?
I mean, are we going to get into both? Are we going to say one and then converse about it?
Get into both. Yeah.
Okay. So let's start with money.
Okay. My life's a joke and I live in luxury. Beat that. So this is referring to, so you had a very nice apartment in good old Bloomfield, Connecticut, which I miss Heirloom Flats dearly. And so, let's be honest, you weren't making that much money at the job that you had at the time. And so an unwise financial decision to be living in the apartment you were with the paychecks that you were. But you were just very I want to live in a very comfortable place. I don't want to have any struggles at all, which I fully understand, but just financially, it was maybe not the smartest idea. And so you kind of have to make some sacrifices in some other areas in order to live that way. So I just kind of want to get into the psychology here. Why do you feel that way? Because, me, minimalist me, I choose to live below my means so that I can live above my means in other areas, so that I can go to as many coffee shops as I want, so that I can travel more, so that if I spend less on the manner in which I live, it can allow me to have more experiences, which is what I ultimately describe as my subscription for happiness.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier how I do care about people, but this is where I become very selfish and self-absorbed. I like to live in comfort. I like to make sure that because a majority of your time spent, even for a person like me who doesn't like to be home that much, will be at home. You need to be able to wake up and enjoy your surroundings. So I also had the caveat. I mean, I'm not spending my entire paycheck on a beautiful apartment. I had a little side hustle in college that made me some money. I was a bookie. I think the statute of limitations has expired where the FBI isn't after my ass. So that was kind of my thing. You gamble, you bookie, you make some money. So I had some hush money down on the side that was helping me out a little bit, which was nice. But yes, it is important for me to live like that. I like to be comfortable in my house. If I lived like you and I had my mentality of I need to be around people, I would never be in my apartment. I would have to sleep for 2 hours and then just get the hell out of my apartment if I hated it. So I needed to enjoy that apartment. And, we all listen to the Troy Farkas show, and we all know about your excursion about being in a van in the woods in the middle of the Appalachian Mountains. And you actually hit me up to go with you. And I got the text, and I'm with my grandfather. And, only Troy can text me these things. Only Troy can text this to anybody, really, but especially to me, and be like, hey, do you want to go into the middle of the Appalachian Mountains and hang out in a van and hike? It's just what in God's name made you think that I was going to possibly say yes to this. It is not my style. Like, I love doing things, but I love doing things and then coming back home or, whatever. I'm not going to be
you draw the line at having bugs enter where you're sleeping.
Yeah, no, I don't like that type of things. And I think it goes back, and I told you this story about Father's Day from when I was like 5 years old to like 12 years old. My dad would always force us down to somewhere in Delaware. And it was an excursion that he would always put us on where we would camp the first night and then we would whitewater raft down the Delaware River, River on Father's Day and then head back home. I hate camping because of these trips. My dad was a little bit of an extremist. That's like kind of what made me a bit of an extremist, I guess. And for some reason, every single year it would rain horribly bad on this hiking adventure. So me, my brother, and my dad, we weren't fully grown men to start, but towards the end, we were getting pretty big in size, all sharing one tiny little tent, sleeping backs to the ground. My dad's not really an outdoorsy person, so he's not doing it upright. I don't think like we're doing tenting great, and I'm uncomfortable, bugs, outside noise. I'm like, I hate this. It's horrible. It's hot. And we're all sleeping together. I'm like, this is so weird. I don't know why anybody chooses to do this. And then the next day when we were whitewater raft, another thing that I enjoy doing, if it's like a day trip, you kayak, you canoe, you whitewater raft, I'm with that. But my dad, being the extremist, the guy's like 60 years old, still has like an 8-pack and like he's jacked up to shit. And 5-year-old me, after getting a horrible night's sleep, would get tired, and I would stop paddling, and he'd be like, "Get your paddle back in your hands. You better start paddling. I'm carrying the team here." I was just like, God damn it, this sucks. So yes, I think it goes back to that, why I like to live in comfortable means. If I need to spend a little bit of extra money, it's kind of the trade-offs. Like, yeah, if it's like tipping a waiter really well or something, like you spend a little bit extra and you're going to get extra care. My living situation for the last 3 years was awesome. I had a gym, I had a yoga studio, a golf simulator. I got all my friends over and went to the pool, and it turned into like a little bit of a hangout spot. We had a cool bar, but you got to spend a little bit extra. At the end of the day, it was worth every single penny because it actually turned into like a great place, a little safe haven that we just like to live at and have fun.
And yes, and because of our contrasting lifestyles, the place that I was living in did not have a laundry machine and had to go to the sketchy laundromat down the street. And so I would have to come to your place to do laundry because you're just like desperate for having people around. Just so, hey, if I get Troy over here by doing laundry, like that's fine with me, and then we'll have a good time after that. Also, the beer tap, which was clutch. Yeah,
the beer tap was clutch. The coffee machine was clutch. I didn't have to get like a Keurig or anything like that. I never had to. I mean, I'm not really a beer drinker anymore anyway. I'm a hard seltzer guy through and through. But yes, like it's just a matter of exactly that. And my requirements for any apartment that I'll ever live in, as far as I'm not homeless, and we all know that that's an extreme possibility that I have considered. I could become homeless at some point in my life. And in that situation, you have to deter from what your current path is. But as of now, as a working person who has a job and money and whatever, my requirements is like air conditioning, heating, laundry, dishwasher. And I try to go for ones with gyms in them because I don't like to pay for a gym membership. That's another trade-off there, by the way. Gym memberships get expensive.
You'd be happy to know, again, another note to my personal evolution, moving to Portsmouth, New Hampshire in a week, and the apartment complex that I have signed up yet is like a step below yours in Connecticut in terms of how nice it is. But I also kind of went into it with the mindset of, okay, this is not only my home, but it's also my office. So I'm going to be spending a lot of time here. So it needs to be nice. I need to be comfortable in it. Central air needs to be there. Need to have washer dryer in unit. The building has a gym as well. So I'm no longer living amongst the rats like I once was.
I'm glad I was a positive influence in your life. You're a grown person. You're a grown adult. You want to live in a place where you could bring people back. And it's just like, wait, I thought you worked. I didn't know that you were an actual homeless person. You're sleeping in an attic somewhere with vermin and on a mattress on the ground, and you have one place to sit, 2 places, including a yoga mat. Yes, I don't like to live like that. I like to be able to bring people back to my apartment and be like, wow, this guy's got his shit together, and then hit him with the Jake Lenok personality. Brick wall, baby. You're about to walk into some shit. So it's more of like a mirage than anything, but it's still a great place to be. And I like living in comfortable means.
The best part about that apartment that you were referring to was every morning I would have my coffee out on my porch, and there was this red van that was just outside at the place next to me. And so it stayed there. It didn't move, flat tire, like it never moved. In about 20 days into me being there and staring at this van every morning, 6 a.m., someone just rolled out of the van and just like walked out, just rolled out and walked out. And I was like, holy crap, this is crazy. Anyway,
these people roam the streets, Troy. These people like exist and they roam the streets, and you would never even know that person spends a majority of their life in a van. That's why you got to get to know people. It's very important.
Yeah, sounds like a good lifestyle. Second quote that comes from the notes. I've been thinking about death since 5 years old. That's why I gave up so early. You and I talk about death a lot. We both have a fascination with death. We always joke around that, like, you deserve to, like, you're going to die early. We are in consensus of that. And it's going to, we hope that it's from a good story. Like, throughout the pandemic, we were like, man, COVID would just be such an unfortunate way for you to go. You can go so many more fun and entertaining ways than that. How do you envision yourself dying?
Well, I always have my dream death, the ultimate Jake death. And anybody that knows me knows that I have 3 big fears in life. And it's planes, it's sharks, and it's drowning. Those are the 3 things that I, respect. Not planes. Planes suck. And I just went to Vegas, had like the 2 worst plane rides ever, and it was horrible. But planes, I don't like. It's a lack of control thing. You're very high in the sky. You're like a mile up. I'm claustrophobic. I don't like being, like, as much as I like being surrounded by people, I don't like being packed in by people. I hate bars where you're like shoulder to shoulder and forced into awkward conversations with people that you don't want to talk to. It's hell for me. So planes takes all my least favorite things and combines them together. So I don't like planes. Sharks, I respect. I love sharks. So my personal theory on sharks is that sharks don't come barging in through my front door and make its home on my couch or something all willy-nilly, uninvited. In certain parts of the country, you get yourself killed doing that, if there are legal firearms and all that. So when sharks do that to humans, when humans just want to play in the ocean, in their home, and then the shark bites the human, it's the shark's fault? No, it's the human's fault, and I don't like that. Sharks are protecting their ground. They're like, once you're in my home, I have the right to do what the humans do. So that's kind of what I like to do. And then drowning just sounds like it sucks. I heard it's actually like, I heard a new thing that drowning actually gets like really euphoric. And I know it's like a natural brain thing to make death easier. And it's like your endorphins go and like you get high or something like that. But drowning in total, I mean, if you've ever been underwater for a little bit too long, it sucks and it's stressful and I don't like it. And I had a bad experience when I was a kid with being underwater for just a drop too long and I didn't like it. So the way that I envision myself dying is I get on a plane, and I actually was telling this story this weekend. I talk about this way too much. You talk
about death a lot.
I met this girl for the first time and I started going on this rant right here. That should tell you how unhinged I am, how unbearably fucked up this whole brain is. But anyway, so I told this to a girl. I tell this story about once a week. My idea of death, what's going to happen is that I'm going to go up in a plane. I'm going to go from New York to Miami, where you're flying over a majority of water, or overseas, or hopefully, I mean, if I ever get overseas, where you're flying over a majority of water. Plane goes down, boom, and for some reason, I'm going to be the only one that lives. So I'm alone. I need to be around people. If I was like doggy paddling in the middle of the ocean with a bunch of people, sounds like a party. I'm okay with that. I mean, I would get pruny, and I hate getting pruny, but at least I'm with people. Sometimes you stay in the pool and get pruny a little bit too long if you're around great people. So I'm bobbing. I'm like doggy paddling in the ocean, and I'm getting pruny, but I'm just there by myself, not being able to talk to anybody, no land in sight. Then the sharks come. They start circling around. Now, I'm not afraid of getting eaten by a shark. If I get eaten by a shark, it's quick, it's easy, it's nice. And I know that an animal that I love the most is doing their job to protect me. Like, they're just giving me a quick, easy death. These are bad. In my hypothetical, these are bad sharks. they pick at me like birds. They rip an arm off, they rip the other arm off, then they rip my leg off. And as soon as I'm just bobbing there with my one left leg, they snatch my left leg. So now I have nothing. And I don't know if I would float like a potato or something like that or drown, but then I would drown. And that would be like the ultimate Jake Lenok death right there.
That's quite the death there. I don't know why. Like, why do we? I mean, I'm fascinated by death for the reason, like people think it's super morbid when I talk about it, just because I've really come under the mindset over the last like year and a half, especially just the pandemic has exacerbated that, about how life is short. And I lost a best friend several years ago now. And so that I've just kind of had in the back of my mind that life is short. You got to do everything while you can. Like you tomorrow is not guaranteed. That's why I lived in Colorado this year, because it was something I'd always wanted to do. I'm like, I don't know when I'm going to be able to do this half marathon thing. Like, this is something I've always wanted to be able to do. I could get paralyzed in a week because I'm an idiot on my bike, or like I jaywalk and get hit by something, right? So moral of the story is I think about death because I always think about it. It's something that can happen at any time. And I think frequently about like everything that you have right now can be taken away from you at any moment. And so that it's not a morbid thought, but it's a freeing thought. It teaches you to appreciate life more, to be grateful for what you have by practicing negative visualization, as it is called. It's just like imagining that everything is taken away from you, that death can happen, that injury can happen, that people around you can be taken away from you for whatever reason, so that you greater appreciate it while you have it.
I mean, that's totally dead on. You could go two ways with thinking about death. You think about it too much. Well, I think about it a lot. Don't get me wrong. Like, I think about it all the fucking time. But you could think about it a lot like I do, but fear it. And it can limit you. It can make you afraid to go out into the world. You could get ran over by not looking one direction, get ran over by a car. Some crazy guy could come up to you and shank you. Your heart could just give out. You can have a brain aneurysm. That should not want to stop you from living life. So if you just accept the fact that you are going to die one day and you think about it all the time, be like, what am I doing today that I can live on with and like have a good story, or just like have an experience that I can keep to myself? What did I do today that's memorable, that made me a more fulfilling life? You know, when people fear death, that's kind of the route that they go. They become hermits. They just sit in their houses and become recluse. Or you could just not think about death like most normal people do, I assume, or at least they don't talk about it nearly as much. And those are free people too. Like, you just live life because you like life, and I like life too. But I just think that when you think about death, appreciate death, respect death, but you just kind of don't fear it that much, and just know that one day you're going to go out in a fiery blaze of glory, and your everlasting legacy. I mean, not like legacy really matters. I think the legacy talk is stupid, but it's just like, who was Jake Lenok? Who was Troy Farkas? Was he a good person to be around, or was he a hermit? Was he scared of life because he was afraid of death and now he's dead? No, I'd like to be alive. I like to experience life. I like to see cool views. I like to take giant hikes. I like to exercise. I like to be active. I like to be around the people that I love, because at the end of the day, it is all going to come to a close. And I don't want to be the guy that's sitting on a deathbed as if I'm going to die of like cancer or something. There's no shot that that's happening. I'm going to die instantly. I can almost guarantee it. But I don't want to be the guy sitting on my deathbed like, damn, man, I wish I hung out with Troy more. I wish I hung out with my mom more. Like, that's not something that I have any fear that will be a regret of mine. Like, when I want to be around people, I'm around them. I cross through fire, ice, hell, heaven. It doesn't matter. I will do anything to be around my people. I will do anything to just have experiences and have fun. Like, that's, as I said earlier in this podcast, everything is rented. So you just have to go on and do you. And that's the approach that I take.
It's a good approach. It's one that I share. My biggest fear in life is regret. I don't want to be in that final moment of death and basically like looking back on my life and being like, man, I wish I had done that thing, or, I wish I had kept that person around longer, or I wish. And so I keep that in mind right now, is that I want to make the most of every day and not regret anything. Like, if there's something I want to do, figure it out and go do it, and do it sooner than later.
Absolutely. And that's my approach too. So, What was the quote again?
So that quote is, I've been thinking about death since 5 years old. That's why I gave up so early.
See, giving up. It like, listen, I like to give these little negative twists at the end and usually gets a laugh out of people and all that. But I gave up, meaning like it freed me, like
Yes.
once you just stop like worrying about it, it's just like I can do anything. I could go talk to that girl that's like way out of my league because what's the worst you're going to do? Shoot me down?
Exactly.
Am I going to remember that when I'm dead? Fuck no, I don't care. So you could just do whatever the hell you want and not think twice about it. I still struggle getting on planes because of, the shark attacks and all that. But at the end of the day, like I'm not afraid of death when I'm on planes. I'm afraid of just being too cramped up. I've been on private jets before, and that's awesome. No, it's a little brag there. I'm a pretty cool guy. I've been on private jets. Private jets are awesome. I'll go on a private jet any day of the week. If you have one, hit me up. I'll just ride it with you.
One day. But you're right. It is a freeing thought to realize that, like, hey, we're all gonna die. Like, none of us matter in the grand scheme of things. So to lighten up the mood, let's read a couple more quotes here that are appropriate. I can't wait to be Massachusetts trash my whole life. Apologies to all the native Massachusetts people that are listening to this.
I mean, you also have to take that through the concept that I'm a New Yorker, and my whole idea of Massachusetts is just people dropping their ass and living in what's the trash can project in Boston called? It's
Worcester,
not
Mass.
Mars is in New York, but like Lowell, Massachusetts. I watched The Fighter one too many times, and Mark Wahlberg and Christian Bale just being trash cans with their trash can sisters. That's my idea of like a Massachusetts. I'm sure there's a lot of lovely people in Massachusetts, but I've only been there once.
I'm a self-loathing fuck, not a pathetic loser.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if you made it this far into the podcast, you can see where that one came from.
Yes. Let's see. More on death. I'm gonna die simply because I don't deserve to live.
Yeah, it's true. I've used up my deserving lifespan a long time ago. So now every day is borrowed, and I really appreciate it to whoever's looking out for me.
Gosh, some of these are not appropriate. I want to also talk to you about your podcast, The One and Dones. If you are on the YouTube audience, it is prominently featured here. So you do a podcast. You and Connor, our friend here, again, shout out to Connor, started it last college basketball season, shortly after the Troy Farkas show launch. And you guys are quickly ascended the top of the Apple podcast charts. You guys, One and Dones, are right there. It's like Part of My Take, One and Dones, Bill Simmons, and that's how it is. So what can the fans expect on the podcast this year?
Well, first of all, the meteoric rise of the One and Dones podcast is something that I'm forever grateful for. I did not expect it. We worked very hard for it. So to all of our millions and millions of viewers and listeners listening right now, we really appreciate your love and support. And if you don't follow, then fuck, just kidding. But if you don't follow, you can find it wherever you find your podcast. Like, rate, review, subscribe, all that stuff. And it's always nice to know that somebody's listening. I mean, as a person who listens to a lot of podcasts now that I have my long commute to work, it keeps people company. It's nice, it's like being around people when you're just alone, and it's just kind of nice. So I enjoy it. But yes, season 2 coming to stores near you. We are currently in the lab doing push-ups, sit-ups. We're gonna have a major glow up for season 2. Season 1 was like the test run. It was mock one and dones. It was, just working out a lot of kinks, working on the fly. We decided to do it pretty late, but we are audio people. We work in the audio field. We had ideas, and we're just like, you know what? Screw it. Let's just start it. And as we go, we will develop and we will keep going. And luckily in season 2, Connor and I have gotten together and we've talked about a bunch of ideas, new logo coming soon. We're about to glamorize ourselves. We're about to get real pretty, get 6-packs going, get all cut up, Marathon Jake back in action. And shout out to Emily, your girl.
Shout out to Emily.
She actually did our podcast logo after we saw how cool the Troy Farkas show podcast logo was looking. So that's coming soon. This is the old one if you're looking on the YouTube syndication. But yeah, season 2, we're going to do a lot of the same stuff, but we're going to do it better. And college basketball, college hoops. If you like to just sit around, mess around, talk about sports, listen about sports, come join, come hit us up. Everybody's welcome. Doesn't matter if you're tall or short, young or old. we like you. Come join us.
Love that. The one and dones. I will put a bunch of information about the show in the show notes of today's episode. Now, as you just alluded to, biggest show on earth. So you are a very busy man. So it's amazing that we've gotten this much time out of you. So I do have one more question for you that I want to talk about that I want to, before I let you go. So, a bunch of things that we talk about on this podcast are, like self-improvement, young people, all of the things that we're going through. And so when you first moved out to Connecticut, you were in Indiana and you were actually in New York and Arizona. Before that, you've been all over this country, living in all sorts of different states, having a bunch of wild experiences, which is why I like talking to you, because you've been through so much. When you moved out to Connecticut, you were in a long-term relationship at the time with a girlfriend that you'd been with like 3 or 4 years.
I broke up to her right before I came to Connecticut.
Right. Yeah, right.
But like it was immediate. The second before I moved to Connecticut was when we broke it off.
Right. Because you had kind of realized like, hey, I've got to leave Indiana. I've been presented this amazing work opportunity. I have to take it. And so you were kind of at this crossroads of your relationship where it's like, what are we? Like, what are we doing here? And so I think a lot of people, out there our age are kind of in a similar spot that you were once in, where it's like you're in a relationship and you reach a point where you're like, all right, I got to do what's best for my career right now. I have to prioritize career development right now because we're still so early on and we just need to take any good opportunity that comes our way and you prioritize that over more personal relationships and such. So you were in the situation where you're like, I have to take this and it's going to affect my relationship and I might just have to call it off completely. And there's definitely some people listening that might find themselves in similar situations. So when that happened, when you knew you were going to move to Connecticut, what did you what was that decision-making process like for you in terms of breaking that off?
Right. So I was in this relationship for 3 years, and shout out to the girl because she dealt with me for 3 years. I'm a handful, and she was a champion through the whole thing. We left it off on good terms. She's a marvelous person. Just didn't really work out between us romantically. But yeah, you got to kind of measure the pros and cons of relationships. You have to, I find that being myself is the most important thing. And I was never limited to being myself when I was with this girl. But we did do long distance relationship one time before I decided to move to Connecticut. After I graduated college, I went back to New York for a year to work at Buffalo Wild Wings. I had a great job opportunity waiting for me, and I took it. I grabbed it by the horns. I'm like, I'm going to be a server at Buffalo Wild Wings straight out of college. Not a lot of people get that type of opportunity, so I had to capitalize on that. But I was with this girl for a year and a half, 2 years at this point. We had a similar discussion. It's just like, do we want to do this? And we were still very much into it. So while I was working at Buffalo Wild Wings, I was looking for jobs in audio to advance my career. And I expanded my search to Indiana, and that's where I got my jobs. Then we moved back in. My greatest piece of advice to anybody, and I know that there are religious limitations with this, so it could be a little bit controversial or against what you think. But if you are really serious with a girl, I think it is the most important thing in the world that you live with her. You have to live with her before you put a ring on it because people are different when you live with them. It comes back to my roommate thing. Like I love being around people all the time. And I got roommates who I was friends with, but I don't know if it's me or them. When I'm home, I like to close myself off. I'm on all the time that when I'm home for the short amount of time that I'm home, I don't really like to be around people. And it's like, wow, Jake doesn't like me because he's just being a recluse. And I'm like, that's not the case. I just need to like recharge a little bit. And I'm not necessarily choosing to hang out with you. So I was never really a good roommate. That wasn't the case. She was probably one of the better roommates I've had in my life, considering that I'm coming off of roommates that hit me in the arm with a bat. I'm not sure if I've ever told you that story.
That'll be your third.
Yeah. I've had pretty bad roommate situations, and she was fantastic for the most part, but it just came down to a point where we were going through the motions and I was coming home, and it's after a year of living with her. And I was just like, I'm not like super pumped. I'm like, yes, I'm done with work. I'm going to go home and I'm going to see her. And I'm super happy about that. And when it was approaching that I got this job in Connecticut and I was moving and I was living in Indiana, you start thinking about it. And it's just like, okay, like long distance relationship really sucked that 1 year. And we were like way more heavy than we are today. I mean, like you live with somebody a lot, you get a little spoiled with their with their appearances and, you know, just seeing them every single day. You take it for granted, really. And when I moved to Connecticut, it just turned into a thing. It's just like, all right, like, am I really willing to come off of like living with her to do long distance relationship? That's like the girlfriend boyfriend equivalent of getting a divorce. And I'm just like, or a separation at the very least. And I'm just like, I don't need that. And then on top of that, about being yourself, it's like when I was in the long distance relationship, it limited me because I'm very unhinged. I like to drink. And when I drink, I don't like to think too much. And when I think too much, I'm approaching conversations differently. I mean, not really with guys, but like with girls. I like to take situations and see where it can go. I don't like to limit my experience to anything or anyone or whatever. So that's kind of why I was just like, listen, this is a big change in my life. This is the first time where I see myself being in a job that isn't like an annual switchover. This is something that I plan on being for at least 2 to 3 years where I'm at now. So it was the right decision for me. And did it expedite the process a little bit? Maybe, but it was ultimately a great thing. But to all the young people listening who may be in the situation, whether to go the extra step or to take it back, really measure like how you are around her. If you're not trying that hard to be yourself, that's a great thing. If you are trying too hard to appease her, not a great thing. And on top of that, I would tell anybody who's on the fringe of marrying a person, live with them first and then make your decision.
And that advice goes for the ladies listening.
Yes, I made that very guy centric.
This is an all inclusive show.
Yes.
Actually, more women listen to the show than men, which, you know,
all right. So just switch the hims to hers and the he's to the she's, and fuck it. Like I don't really care. I just speak in generalities all the time. My brain is mush, so I'm all right.
We accept all pronouns here. Jake, thank you so much for joining me. The One and Done's podcast. Find them wherever you get your podcasts, all the socials. Put it in the show notes of this episode. Jake, I can't wait to have you on a third time. Hopefully you make it that long. I don't know, you know, what's going to happen to you tomorrow. Something crazy could happen. So until then, I look forward to catching up with you.
Likewise, I appreciate you having me on, and I look forward. I'm an optimist, so I look forward to my third appearance. I will be here for it. So yeah, thank you for that, and thank you for having me on. I really had fun.
Thank you for watching today's episode of the Troy Farkas Show. If you would like more from me and my guests, head on over to thetroyfarkasshow.com for more podcasts, blogs, and videos. Be sure to drop a like on YouTube. You can subscribe to my channel. You can follow the show wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We would really appreciate it.